Welcome everyone to How to Pack Your Work with Suzanne Moore. I see many familiar faces and names on this call. And for those who do not know me, my name is Debbie Commodore, and I'm a member of this year's exhibition committee, along with Kim Eisenman, Diane Miller, Suze Wolf, and Shay Towers. And I know many of you are going to have your work in the exhibition this summer at the Collins Library and have it continuing to the Evergreen Library. We have been enjoying seeing the photos of your work and reading about it, and we are really excited to see your work in person in about a month. After all the time and work you've put into creating your books, deciding how to pack them up for safe transport and delivery is really important. We are asking that all artists have their work that's continuing to Evergreen packed securely so that we can transport it to the secondary exhibition location. As we were thinking about this, about providing you with resources on how to pack your work, we thought we would draw on the expertise and wisdom of Suzanne Moore. And Suzanne has graciously agreed to share with us kind of her learnings over her many years of packing up books. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to you, Suzanne.
Thank you for inviting me to do this. And, as every demonstration, it, makes me kind of rethink how to explain things, which is always a good thing. So rather than give you just a specific way to pack a book, I'm going to give you some suggestions for kind of thinking about how and why and with what materials you'll pack your work. And I'm a huge advocate of using recycled materials especially for things like this. You'll be amazed when you start looking how many boxes that might perfectly fit a book there are in the world. I also try to avoid using new plastics, and there are a lot of things that are also available that will protect your work other than buying kind of new plastic. So we'll talk about the concept of floating a book rather than double boxing, because sometimes it's difficult to find two boxes that fit inside of each other that really work to hold your book. If you start with a clamshell or some kind of protective enclosure, that can be, your first and very important key to protecting your work. And especially for those of you who are sending work or offering work to collectors, one of the things on the handout is something that Ruth Rogers from Wellesley College told us decades ago when she was giving advice to artists approaching her for work for the collection. And she said, make sure to give me the item, whatever it is, that it's dimensional or flat book, whatever size and scale, in a protective box that I can put on the shelf. And that means that they do not have to make an enclosure, which can be quite expensive for collections. So that's a really key thing to think about when you're offering work for sale. So we're going to consider who the recipient is, if they unpack it a single time, or if they have to unpack it and repack it, which requires something a little bit different. And I went through this whole process with my edition book because I have to put materials together to pack. And I was going to demonstrate with that, and then I realized it was way too big for the desktop. But I wanted to show you the scale. This box is 16 by 20, and it started out 16 by 20 by 12-inch deep box, because sometimes you just can't find a box that really fits the height and the dimensions of a book. They're made for much bulkier materials. So when you are packing, I want to unpack this just to show you the corners, because this is a more fragile book. So the floating idea has crumpled paper in the bottom, and then it has the book between pieces of cardboard, and the corners are bent and taped really tightly. So this is the kind of packing that we do if it's going to a single recipient. So you put this floated book in the box with crumpled paper on the bottom, crumpled paper, or if you have recycled other materials of any kind, crumpled paper on the top, and then you close it all up. So imagine your recipient is a person who's just unpacking at one time. If it's going to a bookseller, they might want to use the packing to ship your book to its final home. And that is a little more complex than most of you will have to do for your getting your work to the exhibition. And so you'll, unless you're out of state, which several people are, you would hand carry your book to the pickup location. And for that, you have different needs and requirements than if you're going to ship it to the library or a private collector, as I just showed you. So we'll start with a simple kind of minimal thing that you could do, and it will easily protect the book, and it can be carried and stacked between one location and the other. It's not going to be put in the mail, jostled around and shipped, so you don't have to worry about that. So this is a little book that is bound in paper, so it doesn't have boards that stiffen it. And this is its little protective wrapper. And this might be a book that could be shelved in a library, but if I knew it were going to a library, or if it's sold, I might offer to make another enclosure for it. It doesn't have to be a clamshell box, but it might be. So the very simplest thing you might do is label your materials, your packing materials. With your name, your phone number, and the title of your work. And what I'm going to do is tape. I want something that I can tape to a larger piece of corrugated cardboard that I can slide into this bubble wrap case. So this is for a smaller book than I sent to the last exhibition. And I put tape out so that it was ready for me. And I'm just gonna, and this is so lightweight, and the mat board is almost free at a place you probably have a frame shop near you. I'm just gonna tape the corners. And I don't use removable tape. This is a painter's tape that I happened to get at the Habby store, the Habitat for Humanity store. And I love it because it doesn't release when it, after it's been on for a while. Removable tape is made to release. And so you have to be careful. Sometimes it will release when you don't want it to. So I'm going to take this and tape it this time with plastic packing tape. And I'm going to just tape it here. And with any kind of plastic tape, you want to make sure to burnish it down. So that holds it to the bottom. And this is the top with my name and the title. And then this, and I like this really thin plastic packing tape that I get at a packaging store because it's super sticky. And it, interestingly enough, it's really sticky, but it tends to not tear up your materials as much. So again, this is just a very lightweight book, and it's going to be hand carried. And I've cut the bigger pieces of cardboard so that it fits in here. There we go. Fits in here. And then instead of doing the seal, you can do the thing where you put a piece of tape right at the edge of your flap, not overlapping it, and then put another piece of tape with a little finger fold over. And the tape that you first put down allows this to release. And you can write open. And then put your name on the outside again and your phone number. And somewhere on every book, you should put your address, just in case it gets separated for some reason from its packing materials. But this is a pretty minimal package, but you do want to make sure to put your name on it. Because then everything you've packed it in has your name on it. And so if you imagine that volunteers might be unpacking, someone who gets assigned to the task and hasn't done it before for an exhibition might not understand that they need to really keep everything together. And a lot of times, if you just take a moment to imagine what someone is doing when they unpack it, you'll have better success with you when you think of how you're going to pack something. So that's with ready-made materials. This is a bigger book, heavier. It's in a clamshell box and wrapped in paper that, again, has one of those tabs that allows you to untape it and open this end. So don't wrap it so tight that people can't get it out. And then what if I want to put it in a ready-made box? Well, this one is a little tight. There's just half an inch here, maybe an inch here. So you'd need a bigger box to put this in. This is a much better kind of safety distance around your book, depending on how big it is. And this one's light, so I might not need quite this much, but I do have a box already. So that's a nice thing. And you can certainly use an existing box and just make sure to label it really well so it's easy for people to see where the book came from and contact information. So for this one, we'll use the technique that Don used for my book. And as I said, it was too big. And we'll do the thing so people can unwrap it by just putting a little bit of tape here on this last flap. And then putting tape here. Oh, I don't want it there. Could be there. And then you could use either this kind of tape, or I'll show you that this is really easy to take off because you have this plastic here that is allowing you to release it and help the person out who's unpacking. I think this is why Debbie asked me to do it, because I had these little notes about about the packing. And then how am I going to float this in here? So again, it's quite lightweight. If you look at the information in the handout, you'll see an example of packing a book that was 31 pounds. And it's about hip height on my husband and about 4 feet long. So we've packed books with the same concept, but different materials. So you take into account the weight of your book, and you can cut up packing material that you found using your break-off knife, and use one that has a screw instead of one like this, which doesn't have a stop on it. And you have to have enough blade to, I'm a little short on the blade, but you put your blade all the way out and then screw it tight. And you can very easily cut materials like this. And Tucson is one of the only places that has a city program that allows for recycling of every plastic that anything is packaged in, including styrofoam and bubble wrap. And it's truly amazing because there was no place to go with any of that stuff. You'll find that styrofoam from like televisions and things like that is doesn't pill as much as styrofoam, some styrofoam insulation. So by using this, I can have a spacer that makes a little recess for my book. Now, if I don't have that, I can use rolled up paper. Get rid of my box. And before this is stuff heavy. Before I pack it, I'm going to put it in, I had saved a bag, a Ziploc bag that I got something in that was just perfect for this demo, and I cannot find it. And so I just got an Ace, nice heavy Ace bag, and I'm going to put the book in that. It doesn't make any difference if it's flat or not because it's protected, but you can kind of gently fold it. And you only need plastic if your book is going to be shipped by a shipper. So our, and of course, the nice thing about a Ziploc bag is that it's nice and flat and it seals. Make sure you don't use the kind that have the little, I had one here, have the little clunky zipper on them, you know, because that might dent something that you've done. So if you're going to ship this, you want to make sure to seal all the parts or close your Ziploc bag. And that is because years ago, when we asked the UPS driver, how do we think about packing? He said 1 gallon of water and 200 pounds of pressure. Because you never know if something is going to be in weather, if something spills in the truck. how many packages are stacked on top of it as he does his route. And so you have to make sure that you're protecting it if you're giving it to a shipper with plastic. So for your hand carried work, this is not necessary. You don't have to do this. You want to make sure to put in your from information, including a phone number, and to information. I could use some levity. So mine is addressed to Mars, just to the left of the big rock in outer space. Who knows what the phone number is. So you put that in with the book and tape it on. And then again, you can use this if you have it. You can use rolls of bubble wrap, which are nice and clean. And what you're trying to do is just fill up some of the space around the book. So I'm going to use this on one side. You're just trying to keep it from sliding while you put the cardboard on it. And so you're floating it in space and filling up the space around it so that it can't slide. And in the box that I just showed you, Don, this would be the place if you're, again, giving a big book to a shipper where you crunch down the corners and, crunch them down dramatically and tape them. But for your purposes for this exhibition, you don't have to do that. And it's on the sheet. Then you can turn it up. And if you twist this, it tends to keep its integrity a little bit better. Don's here, and he and I do a lot of things differently, so he might not approve, I don't know. He's not scowling at me, so. You know how that is when you have a partner or a close friend and you do a lot with them, but you do things in such different ways, and they all work. So, whatever works for your book, you want to make sure to keep in mind. So I've got the sides done. I need some more paper. And again, you can use the rolls of bubble wrap. I'll put that in last. It's a little small for this, but you pretend that it's perfect.
Huh.
Cut the cardboard so that it fits this box. So again, anytime you can use something that will easily work with an existing box, that's great. And again, instead of gluing this all down, closing it with the strip that's actually it's meant for, if people are going to reopen it, I might even put tape over this so it doesn't stick that way. And again, do my little thing where I put tape here. Everybody get that part? I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a hand carried situation. Yeah. So to hand carry it, it can still have some space. See, Don said, oh, it's flopping around. He doesn't like that. So, so if you were going to ship it, you'd want to put more really tightly crunched paper, down in to these areas here and here. Or bubble wrap, or avoid shredded paper and peanuts if you can. But again, this is a hand carried situation, so this is very secure in here. And it's not going to go anywhere. And oh, and you want to make sure to put your name and the title of the book on the outside as well. And close it up. And tell people where to open it. Yeah, so you can kind of overachieve on the labeling things. Okay. So that's an option which you can do some variations with. And what's the time like? Okay. So I'm going to do this one pretty quickly and try to fit in one more for a deeper box. This is a book that this wrapper was made with acrylic paint and methyl cellulose, and I discovered that it wears really well. So it could be something that a collector would put on the shelf like this. If not, you might want to make some other kind of wrapper for it, or make a box of more sturdy materials. And I did want to encourage you, if you don't know how to make clamshell boxes, or if you have an item that it's difficult to do that with, you can order boxes from the conservation groups, suppliers that I told you about, that are made quite often for textiles, and they have metal edges. They're commonly used in libraries and in private collections to house work. So you could make this as something that would, choose the closest one you can, and use this as something with whatever kind. This is just a slide box, but have your book and then have kind of bumpers around it to hold the book in place if the book is much smaller than the box. And they range from $18 to $25 for most book sizes, which I was kind of surprised, because if you have a clamshell box made, it might be a couple $100, for something similar in size to house a book here. So that's what those three suppliers are. So it looks like I might have shipped this book like this, but I don't like the narrow edge here. If you imagine that impact might be here, because the whole package gets dropped, that is not enough perimeter. So I made another. I'll turn it this way so you can see it. So this is my book. It has the tab, and I think this is the one that you saw, Debbie. It has a tab, and it says lift tape tab and slide book out. So I've kind of strengthened these edges a little bit with tape, and my book in this case is in a very thin board with cloth cover, so it has a little more integrity. And it's easily openable, identifiable, and whatever other information you want to suggest to people there, you can. Oops. Oh, and of course I'm making a really bad ammo here by losing my tape. Yeah. But again, they might hand carry it, so I'm going to do that. So, and this says, feel free to coax lettered flaps back to allow them to lay open in the case. So if you want to draw a little picture or do an image with your camera of how you'd like the book to be shown, you can put it on the outside or the inside, and it will give the people that are organizing the exhibition an idea of what you want to do. So I cut these strips and glued them in two layers to make the height of my recess a little higher than the book. And I don't want it in here super tight because again, if you're shipping it, you want to have room for a plastic bag to go around it. And the way you fold this is by with the ridges of the cardboard. And I've already done it, but say this is flat and you have marked where you want it to be. I used I didn't bring that bone folder. I used one of those bamboo folders, you know, those, they're a heavier version of a bone folder. And yeah. And that's okay. It's all right, because I don't have a bone folder handy, honey. And then you would bone fold along here, but with your bone folder, the heel of it down so that it ends up being not tearing through. And then before you put these spacers on here, you can move your straight edge to the side where you want to bend it, bring it over here, and bend it against your straight edge. You can also just cut a second one and put it on the top. And then these guys, once you've figured out where that is, are just a little long. So if you're trimming, you can trim with your knife, but sometimes you can just use the scissors if it's a little bit. And Don just built a really big box for some lamps that we're sending off with this same glue. And you just scribble with it. It doesn't have to be covered at all. And sandwich this on top of it. And make this recess. And then put some good weights on it. As heavy as you have, just for a few minutes. It's amazing how quickly it dries. And sometimes I kind of slide it around ever so slightly to just get it in contact. And then if you cut this to fit, so I would make one of these and then put it on top of here. And if you're lucky, you can find a box that fits, that you don't have to worry about this. And if you use an awl, it can go all the way through. And then I put the top back on this and I put it in a glass with the point down, sitting like that so that the glue keeps going here. And with your straight edge, Don't try to cut through all in one cut. Make sure your straight edge doesn't move. And do a couple of cuts. I know I shouldn't do that with my teeth, right? I'll put this down and kind of squish it around just a little bit to get it to be in contact. And I just lean my whole body on it. And then again. And for a lot of work that artists do, because it is a little bit shallow, this, and so I would weight this down, but we don't have time for that. So I'm just gonna go ahead as if I've already weighted it. And put whatever instructions, or if they're other than something simple, put whatever instructions are in here, your name, your phone number, and the title, and also on here. And the nice thing about having a unit like this is that nothing falls apart. So if it's something that's hand carried, people really can easily open it and reclose it. And the reason I'm doing this so much is because you don't know how they're organizing the work on the other end. If they're taking it completely out of its wrapping, or if they're putting boxes in a place where they're then going to unpack kind of as they go. You just can't anticipate a particular thing that they're going to do. Okay. So this could be ready to go if you were going to hand carry it. If you wanted to be extra safe and you happen to have a box, which I was amazed I did, it's digital paper box, and it absolutely fits that. So if you have something like that that you can put your book in, that's a nice option as well. What?
Could have got this a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and then it would be tight. Yeah, Don's saying if I had cut this a little bigger, it would exactly fit in my other box, but it's a little bit overkill unless I'm shipping it, and in which case I might want, it's a small book, it's a lightweight book, so I don't think I need the depth that you need for a heavier book. But yeah, he's right. If I'd cut it just a little bit bigger, but I didn't see the box until I was finished with that idea. Okay, so this is a bigger book, thicker book, and say it's a very, very heavy book because it has metal binding or something like that. So you want a little more protection for it. And if you can find a box that's exactly the size you want and the depth, that's great. And with all of these spacers that you can make by just folding cardboard or just crumpled paper, or a combination. I'm kind of showing you more than one option. And you could, if you had made these spacers, you could wrap this up, again, if you're hand carrying it, you don't need a plastic bag. If you're shipping it, you do. You could just wrap this up in bubble wrap and lay it inside there, and the bubble wrap would fit that. So I'm kind of giving you the idea of what to do, and you can figure out for your book what the best option is. But this does say it's heavy. This does have floating material on the bottom of the box, and then a piece of cardboard. And you cut one piece like I did the others, and then use it to cut the other piece. A top. You put the book here, and you certainly can buy this kind of foam. I get paper from a brilliant paper maker who packs everything in this foam. And the first time she sent me paper, I was kind of horrified because I got these huge pieces of this foam. But we used them to pack a really big book recently. And it was one of the only solutions to keep that book safe. You don't really need it for something lightweight. But if anything that you can get that's recycled that will fill up that space nicely, go for it. So I made these by just scoring and bending cardboard. And again, you could wrap this in bubble wrap. If you're shipping, put it in a plastic bag first. Make sure your information is with it. And make sure to put, if you're shipping it, make sure to put an address to and from and contact information. So what are we doing time for? And do you see a lot of questions that we should be aware of, Belinda?
No, we don't have any questions in the chat, and I don't see any hand raises either. But
Okay. Well, hopefully it's clear. So this is how we made the box that Don shipped my big book in. You figure out how thick the book is. And in this case, because it's a smaller book, and even though it's heavy, I just left an 1.25 inches on the bottom, 1.25 inches on the top. And I cut the box down. This is a wine box. Trader Joe's has, well, other places do too, but I get them at Trader Joe's, has white wine boxes. And so you don't have a lot of visual there. And by measuring, scoring, and folding with my bone folder. So you measure, you score it with, say this is my bamboo bone folder or the heel of my other bone folder. You score it to make a dent in it without tearing it. And you fold it up all the way around. And then the bottom is already the original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where's my tape? You should see how messy my table is. Off camera. And I'm not going to take time to do it, but whenever you tape, so we kind of tape to line everything up. Whenever you tape, make sure to bone fold. And if you're shipping it, you want to make sure to tape all the way across each seam, because that's another place where water could come in. We had never had this experience before and never lived in this climate. And during COVID, people would like slide things toward our front door. And if you've ever been in a monsoon, you know that it soaks everything just in a nanosecond. And so things would be left out in 110-degree heat or in potential rain. And we did get a couple of books that had been out in the rain, and because they were packed really well, and they had sealed plastic inside, they were not damaged. So again, whatever spacers you wish. So you bend this with the corrugation line. You can wrap your book in bubble wrap. If you're shipping, seal it in something else. You can use that. You can use this. You can use more bubble wrap rolls here and here, etc. So let's just make it slightly more symmetrical. And then to float it from the top. You put this in. One. And this is just obviously labeled so you can see it. And you can put your to and from label here. Whatever else you want to put in to float it, whatever you have. And then seal all the edges if you're shipping it. If not, label it just like you have for the hand carried, so that your name and the type of book is outside of it. Yeah, and when you ship, make sure to notify your recipient of the tracking number. And the other thing is, on that to and from label, I forgot to point out, if you have a UPS or FedEx, any kind of account, not the tracking number, but if you have an account with a shipper, make sure to put your account number on there too, in case someone finds it. It's much easier to deal with a shipment if you say that you're one of their customers. We recently divorced one shipper and took up with another shipper after some bad experiences of things getting misdelivered. So, yeah. So this is making a box that will fit your work nicely. You could put something very heavy in here if you wanted to either hand carry or ship, and or do it very simply for the exhibition, and just, it's still nice and secure for something that's a little heavier, because if books generally don't seem to be super heavy. So people might not expect a box to be heavy. And it means that if you've got it really securely packed, if it slips off a stack, or, someone unexpectedly joggles it somehow, that your work will be protected. So floating recycled materials, consider who the recipient is, whether it needs to be repacked. And if you can find boxes that will fit your work, all the better. I think that's it. Yeah. I think
Wonderful.
that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suzanne, so much. They're just filled with valuable information and really accessible too. I feel well equipped now to go pack my work. Before we wrap up, I'll just ask if there's any questions. Now's the time.
One of the things that I found really helpful when I was setting up an exhibit was the putting the directions of how you want it shown. So if you put those on or in your box, it really helps the people setting up the exhibits. And also because as it's set up in different places, they may not have talked to you earlier.
Mhm. And that's a great reminder, Belinda, and you're speaking from the perspective of the person who's opening it and, needing to set it up. And that's why I put the little note about feel free to fold these papers back, because I didn't want people to think their only option was to show it with those flaps closed. Yeah, but that's a great reminder. Thank you.
Suzanne, this is Lucia.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm the person who um, puts takes the the books, puts them in the box, puts them in my car,
Oh,
moves them on to the
yes.
next location. This last exhibit went, I think, to 4 locations. So if this the what you've showed today would really help PSBA uh, volunteers. So thank you so much. It was very clear and easy to
Good.
follow.
And we all know our work obviously intimately, and it's easy for us to handle it. But when you're in the position of Belinda and other people that are working with the materials, they want to be really careful with the materials and to ask them to dive deeper and like read fine print about a lot of things is something that they have to do for every book. So if you really keep in mind what's the simplest, easiest way to either picture or describe what people can do once they're open, and then making sure they're secure so you don't have to worry about, is one book going to compress something into the next book? Yeah. I didn't realize you'd taken things to 4 locations, Lucia. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Thank you
Multiple
for that.
times.
Thank you so much for that. Cool.
Well,
Well,
I
Really
don't see
swell.
any more questions. I think you all will join me in thanking Suzanne
Mhm.
for just so generous and sharing your experience. And thank you too, Dawn. We know you're there in the background.
yes.
You are.